Hello, welcome to True Hoop with me, Jarod, Hector, and Coach David Thorpe. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. David, we had last night one of the more exciting games, regular season games in the NBA this season. It was billed as the two top teams in the league with the best records, the Oklahoma City Thunder, Cleveland Cavaliers. It actually originally it wasn't going to be a national broadcast game, and it got flexed into the national broadcast spot, which I think is important because
Yeah.
we have so many people who are like, no, the NBA sucks. There's nobody good. I'm like, if you watch that game, if you guys are a basketball fan and you were not entertained watching that game last night, and I don't know, then you don't like basketball. Like I don't know what to tell you. You don't like basketball. Like find something else to
And
do.
you're not listening to our podcast.
and you are not listening to our podcast.
That's for sure.
Also true. It was a super exciting game, so I want to kind of get into that a little bit with you. I really liked the main thing that I want to talk about first is the compete level from both teams. You and I talk about the regular season, and you talk to your players all the time. It's a slog for these guys to do this, every other night and travel, and it's just you're not going to get that kind of effort every night because it's just not humanly possible. But last night, I thought you saw two teams really compete and play hard. What were your thoughts on the compete level of both teams last night?
So first of all, my favorite moment in any game comes just before the tip, where the players do their little pregame run and touch the net, and they're smiling, and I just like it's hard as human beings to be up like that 82 times.
Yep.
It's just hard. And I love when I see it. So first of all, in terms of compete level, which is, that's a phrase I use a lot with my players. I mean, I think that's pretty normal for these teams, which is one reason why they're so good is they, you have to be able to push each other sometimes to get through that slog that you just mentioned. It's something you can recruit. It's something you can evaluate, competitiveness. As I watch college players, it's something I'm really looking at all the time. If I'm thinking about next level, is what kind of compete level are they consistently playing with? You have to have that. These guys are naturally doing that, and they knew, this is potentially a preview of the finals. I don't know if it's even 25% likely to happen.
We'll get into that in a minute.
Maybe it's 25% likely to happen. I probably wouldn't give it much more than that, which is still a pretty it's indicative of how good these two teams are. And I'm sure you have more questions, but I had the game on, didn't really focus on it, watched the fourth quarter this morning. And, but it was a great game. It was, I just had 5 screens going. I'm looking around, and I knew we'd talk about it today, so I knew I'd watch it this morning. But, I think the biggest lead the team had was like 11. It was
no one got double digits. 9 was the biggest.
Nine. Yeah. Very competitive game. Lots of lead changes. That's something I got an alert on my phone, even all the lead changes.
Yes.
Like, what? That's pretty rare. So and Mike was obviously calling it Breen. So it was good for the league. These are excellent teams, and I'll say this, and I'm sure we'll get more into it, but boy, a big part of the fourth quarter, the reserves were doing a good job.
Yeah.
Which goes to tell you that I know the main TV shows love to talk about just the stars as if no one else matters. They matter.
For sure.
And I was glad to see that.
I do recall last year when the Cavs started the year hot, I was like, David, they might not lose 5 games before Christmas. I was right. It is January. They still only have 4 losses, which is incredible. Like,
it's amazing.
Again, Oklahoma City, no slouch. Having only 6 losses.
No, they're missing their starting center.
And they're, yes, correct. And Alex Caruso, who is, when he's right.
And AJ Mitchell.
Correct. I mean,
those are 3 very serious players for them. Yeah,
exactly. No, outstanding basketball. You mentioned everyone playing last night and contributing. Let's talk about Ty Jerome from the Cavaliers last night. I thought he made some key plays for them on both ends of the floor. The things you like to talk about, David, helping them win possessions. A poke away, which led to a steal. It's a lost possession for OKC. 1-1 by Cleveland. Another shot at the basket. He was attacking in the pick and roll. I was like, wow, this guy, here's a player who is confident, but also seemingly knows his role and knows here's what my skills are good at. And when I don't have it, and when the thing is not there, I'm getting off it, giving it to somebody else, and running our offense, doing what we have to do. And you always talk about players who know what they're supposed to do when they're on the floor. To me, in the fourth quarter, watching Ty Jerome, I was like, that's a guy who knows what he's supposed to be doing at all times.
So I was watching Ty Jerome. I saw him last night and didn't really realize how good he was until I watched it again today. And I don't know if I'm going to write an article about this. I might. I got to talk to Henry about it. Oops, excuse me. But I think that guys that aren't valued and then suddenly play well. Excuse me one second.
Yep.
Lost my earbud.
A little earbud loss.
I love those guys. I love that the league. These guys don't think they don't think I can play. I don't remember where Ty was originally. Do you remember? Was it
Did he play at
Sacramento,
UVA?
maybe? No, I know I went to college. Has he been with Cleveland the whole time? I've just gone blank.
Phoenix Suns drafted him first.
Phoenix. Okay. He was out west, right?
Yeah.
But he was anyone.
Then OKC, then Golden State, then Cleveland.
Yeah.
And G League stints, of course.
Fucking really good. Right. I was watching the Pacers last night. One of the games on, and their starting center was Thomas Bryant, who Miami just gave away for basically nothing. And he had 22 and 8 against a Bulls team that's been playing pretty well. First of all, an agent said to me the other day, we need expansion. There's really good players.
Too many players that are not playing.
Really good players. And so that's what I was thinking about watching Bryant. Then I was watching Ty in a very big game. Like really important minutes in the fourth quarter, getting buckets in the paint, second box floaters, competing on defense. Obviously, it's not just those two guys. Okoro playing really good defense in a stretch, although he was a top 5 pick. George Niang made a big 3 after OKC hit a 3 early in the quarter.
Strus.
Yeah, obviously Max he scored 15, I think, in the game.
5 threes. Yep. No,
there's a whole bunch of guys that that you have to have that. You can't just have your stars play well. OKC's got 1 star, although J-Dub's pretty close. He's an all-NBA player. They have 2. Yeah, they have 2.
That's where I want to go, David. Even I talked to this about Henry on Monday after the Thunder Celtics game, which was a game that the Celtics won after trailing double digits. I'm sorry, the Thunder won after trailing double digits.
Right.
And even though they won, my concern was there is one player on the floor for Oklahoma City who can create a shot for himself, can create for somebody else, and who doesn't seem panicked when the defense is throwing things at him, and that being SGA. No surprise there. So this is not a knock on Jalen Williams or anybody else. It's just that
you don't think Jalen can do that? Because I think he's okay at it. He's in year 3.
But this is the point I'm getting to. He needs more reps to get really good at it. So my question to you is, because what I care about for OKC right now is the playoffs. Like they're going to win a shit ton of games, and I don't care. They're going to be fine. In the postseason, when everybody knows Shea's the only guy who really trusts himself and knows what to do, let's see if J-Dub can do it. Do you think the rest of the regular season is enough reps for him to get good enough where that come playoff time, he is a consistent, reliable number 2 option to create and for himself and for others in the half court?
The bigger question you're asking me is OKC have a chance to win a championship as currently constructed?
Correct.
That's really what you're asking me. And I don't think so. I just think they still if you think about the playoffs, it's, I don't know, 2 times, 3 times harder than what we saw last night. When these teams know what you're doing, they know every single call you're making. You're tired, they're tired too. I still think they've got some cooking to do. Now, Chet gives them a very different look because he can shoot the 3. If he even comes back this year, which I don't think we know anything.
February 9th is what they have as a date. But again, as you know, because Henry mentioned the same thing, it's like, oh, well, Chet only needs to be good come the second round. And I was like, well, but guys, he has to it isn't like come February 9th, let's say he's ready to play then. He isn't going to be all NBA first team the minute he steps on the floor. He's got to, and also this is year 2 technically for Chet. He has no reference points of a ton of playoff experience.
He wasn't so good last year in the playoffs. I think, they're the youngest team in the league. And so those teams don't win championships. They have the best player in the league right now. I think Shea's the best.
Yeah. Yep.
It helps your metrics get better when you've got good players around you too. But Jokic on that team would probably have the best.
Oh my God.
But J-Dub's got to continue to get better. I could see them going after I don't know who, but another guy that can really score. And they also need help rebounding.
Yes, they do.
Game last night, late in the game,
Oh
because
my
they
God.
offensive rebounds off a free throw.
Jarod Allen killing them on the boards last night.
It's in the game. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no like. I'm not one of these guys that pronounces anything because of
Right. Because it's one game.
right. Um, I didn't look at the shooting breakdowns for either team. I do know that Cleveland got some huge offensive rebounds late in games and scored.
Mm-hmm.
That matters. And
Mm-hmm.
so Hartenstein's a good rebounder, but they'll play small. And so that's why they got Isaiah for reasons. Always make sure someone is in the game. And now with Chet out, every time Isaiah's out, they're really not a good rebounding team. So,
Yeah.
But they have the ability to make a deal.
Yes, for sure.
I don't know if they will, but they have the ability to do it. And it shouldn't cost them that much. All the picks they have.
As I said on Monday's show, they are the one team that can literally get everything they want and need. They're the only team in the league that can do that because they have all the cap space, all the capital, like everything. Will they, as you mentioned? Different story. And the reason why I said that, David, is because, look, it's very all well and good to think we're a youngest team in the league. This is going to be our future for the next, 8 years. We're going to be maybe. Again, I will point back to this Oklahoma City franchise in 2012, went to the finals with young Kevin Durant, 23, right? 3 of them, right? And there's that famous picture.
How old was he? He
was 23.
Really?
They were young as shit, ahead of schedule. And the talk from everybody was, don't worry, they'll be here for the next. They never went back. Like, we don't know what's going to happen in this league. So to me, if you think you have a chance, and they have more than a chance, you got to try to see if it can happen. That aside, I love Cleveland's offensive execution late. I love that they have 2 guys, and you can even add Ty Jerome in there, 3, but 2 guys in Garland and Mitchell who can both create for not just themselves, but for someone else as well. And their 2 big lineup, which they've been employing for a while, even with the JV Bickerstaff, seems to really, Kenny has seemed to find something. There's a synergy between Jarrett and Evan, the big-to-big connection they have that's working well. Stuff from Jarrett that I saw flashes when he was in Brooklyn that, can this happen? I think Kenny Atkinson might be the Jarrett Allen whisperer. And now all of a sudden it's like, whoa, you're unlocking it and doing it all the time right now. I love when they run those 2 bigs out there together. Maybe that's what OKC envisions when they have Chet and Isaiah, but they need time to see it on the floor.
Yeah. Listen, they got Dean Wade at the 3, and he was a power forward. If you look at him, he's categorized as power forward center. He's playing the 3 for them, and you can get away with when you've got Garland and Mitchell in the backcourt. They're all doing all the ball handling for you. Mm-hmm. So it's a well-constructed team. It's a little bit different than what we normally see. Mm-hmm. Not a 3s that look like Dean Wade playing with 4s and 5s that are really 2 5s. Mm-hmm. Mobley's kind of a 5. Mobley's surge into elite level. We're going to do an All NBA later. He's on my All NBA.
Oh, no question.
Yeah, he's. I loved him coming out of the draft, and he's still growing as a player.
Yeah,
I really happy for Kenny too, what they've built, and there's no bigger fan of Donovan Mitchell than me.
He's awesome.
I fucking loved him since I started studying him when he was with Utah. He's just an amazing bucket getter. But the key shot of the game was Garland's floater.
Yes.
Which came, I just sent this out to all my guards at every level.
David, I was like, how the fuck did you get that off?
Okoro's just, not Okoro. Kason Wallace was marking him really hard at half court. Mm-hmm. And he was just super patient, kind of jabbing him off. And then he made his move, kind of misdribbled it, brought it right back, got it under control, made a hard left-hand drive off Wallace's hip, and then made that shot. That's to your point. They've got more than one guy that can make a play off the dribble. And LeVert.
Yes, and LeVert can also.
Player.
Yes, yeah, correct.
He's playing great this year. So this is a team that's not built for the postseason, too. It's not just the regular season.
Yeah.
You don't win that many games.
Yeah.
And then just not feel like, we still are missing pieces. No, they're good to go.
Shout out to Lou Dort, by the way, for really limiting Donovan Mitchell last night. I mean, he really was bodying him up and just playing physical. Dort is so strong in the chest. Donovan Mitchell's built like a running back, so is Lou Dort, right? So when Donovan gets that shoulder into most guards, there's nothing. They just bounce to the floor because they can't handle it. But not Lou Dort. He's also built the same way, so he can also put the body up against Donovan Mitchell, and I thought it was great. Mentioning Mobley, what is this, year 3 or 4 for Mobley?
4, same as Barnes.
Okay.
Yeah, they get their money next year.
So you often have this thing, and I'm going to butcher it. So it's high school kids play the game? How does it go? You make levels for who plays the game, who reads the game. What's your
Yeah.
delineation?
College players play the game, pros read it.
Got it.
They're
Okay.
reading the game all the time.
You see it now with Mobley, because I remember watching that rookie and a lot of his second year. I'm like, he is like, he's thinking. I can see it every time. He doesn't know yet. And I can see his brain processing. Last night, David, no brain processing. He just knew. Like, everything was decisive, quick. I was like, whoa, what an amazing jump. And I make that analogy to a player we talked about on our editorial call on Tuesday, Jaren Jackson Jr., right? You remember how rough it was from the early part of his career, particularly offensively. David, none of those problems now. I'm like, holy shit. And I know that you have a big smile on your face. This is your job. This is literally what you get paid to do, is to have these players get better at these things. And look, these are players who are DPOY, all-stars, future all-stars, whatever. And we're talking years to get to the point where it's like, now it's clicking.
Yeah. There's just a lot of things to read, and so the more you do it, the better you get at it, like anything else. I don't think you have kids, but we taught our kids to read. They weren't reading so fast at first, when they were 5 or whatever. And they get, my daughter told me yesterday that it's very slow at her hotel because the weather's, she's in Bethesda, it's cold. So she's like, Dad, I've read 3 books this week.
And you're like, what?
So, yeah, she's learned to read fast. She has some free time, or there's just nothing going on at the counter where she is. You get better at it the more you practice it. If you're mindful of it, you got to be mindful of it. It's probably the second most common note we send to players is about reading. The most common would be effort. Players tend to ball watch more than they need to. They tend to stand around, especially NBA players who are tired all the time. This time of year, man, they're tired. I had one player who's a little injured, said to me, I'll be out 4 or 5 days. It's not such a bad thing this time of year. Like, he's tired, But yeah, it's a hard game to master. It takes a while to do it.
Yeah.
Mobley's just got, I love him as a player. I do. I love all those guys. I love Jarrod Allen.
Yeah.
He's like a no nonsense, just hoops all the time.
Yep.
Competes. Again, big fan of Donovan. Like all their guys. I also like, they did this without LeBron. No Kyrie. This is their own team.
Yeah.
And it's been, I wouldn't say organically built only, because it doesn't matter.
Because they got Donovan through a trade, for sure.
Yeah, but Garland and Evan were guys they drafted, and Okoro too plays an important role for them. And the culture's doing well when role players are playing well. That's a big deal. Role players are playing well. Newcomers are playing well. That's a good sign. So kudos to all those guys.
I mentioned this before. Getting Darius Garland back to himself.
Yeah, huge.
And he seems happy and not only just happy, like knows his role, right? So when they go to the bench and he goes off first, so then it's him and Jarrod Allen that works together, right? And then it's Mitchell and Mobley that work together, and then everybody gets back in the game together. It's like they seem to have, and look, this stuff takes time. And you mentioned this earlier. Darius Garland has probably been the best player on his team his whole life. So then all of a sudden, Donovan Mitchell comes and he has to accept that I'm not the best player. Like, it takes some, you got to settle your ego and accept that, which is not easier than it sounds. It's really difficult. And then, okay, let me get into it now. Let me see how I fit. Let me see how it works. Kudos to Kenny for figuring that out and getting those guys rolling. Cleveland is such a fun team to watch. Happy for the fans of Cleveland. You thought it was over after you lost the best player of all time. You're okay. You're 30-4, whatever you are. Only 4 losses. Teams like that go to the NBA Finals, usually win it. So when we'll talk about that in a minute. We talked about OKC and what they need to do. Yeah, I'm very curious to see what the Chet Isaiah Hartenstein duo looks like. We just need.
So are they.
They just need to see it. And again, I hope that when Chet has no setbacks and February is actually the day and they can actually do the thing, because anything other than that is just going to push it further and further back. And it's not enough time to ramp up before the playoffs, in my opinion, so that you really understand what it is you have. But again, they can make moves. Title odds. You mentioned this is a possible finals preview, and I agree. I pulled up the current future odds right now on BetMGM. Who has the best chances of just making of winning the NBA Finals? Celtics plus 240, Thunder plus 260
to win.
Yeah, and then a huge gap. Then the Cavaliers at plus 800 to win it.
This was done after the game.
These are the most recent odds. And look, Vegas isn't the be all end all. They don't know
No, no, no.
everything. All right.
Right.
They're pretty smart though, because they ain't tearing down casinos, right? So, but I still think that this Cleveland team, matchup dependent, right? Like they have a real shot. Look, I think you and I will still probably favor Boston against them in a series. But look, if Cleveland does something, and I don't know that they actually need to do anything. Let me ask you that question: do they need to make a move? I don't know that they necessarily do.
No, there's a risk to making a move. I wouldn't. I haven't studied them that closely, but I wouldn't think. I don't know who they're. Maybe I look at backup five. Who's their backup five right now? I've
Yeah,
drawn a
yeah,
blank.
backup five. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I have to look at that. But I'd favor Cleveland over OKC actually, not because of the game.
Yeah,
I
but
just
just
think OKC is really young. I know why this is because Boston's in the East.
right. Yes.
Yeah, and there's no one like that in the West.
Correct.
I get that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you got to get by Boston, and
Yeah.
and I would favor Boston over Cleveland still.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care what's happening now. I'd favor Boston, but we're a long way from that. Who knows what these teams are doing in May? I mean, in terms of health or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. David, you wrote an article that came out yesterday on troop.com. Everyone should be a subscriber. And it's called What is a Good Shot These Days? And it was your response to the pandemonium about there's too many threes being taken in the game. And I just loved it because, as you often do, you're just sober in your process and how you look at, well, a three just in a vacuum isn't a bad or a good shot. What's the context around it, right? How did we get there? Are you just chucking it up just because? Or are you, right? And you really broke down the importance of, is it a shot that you make at a high clip and a high rate in practice? Then it's a good shot. Take it, right? If it's not, don't. And so let's go in a little bit about that and your methodology for sort of looking at bad versus good shots. And I think it stemmed from the Boston Celtics in a game where they maybe took 63s, possibly.
Well, it's just all the fervor. This is going back 2 weeks of just too many threes, and ratings are down. This is before Christmas Day. That's when I first did my first wrote about it was before Christmas Day. No, it was just afterwards when I saw Lakers Warriors
highest rated game.
the fifth, the highest rated in 5 years, right? Yeah, and they shot 87 threes. So that can't be just threes taken as why fans hate it. There's lots of going, and I'm not an expert in fans. In fact, I'm just the opposite. I know nothing. I haven't been a fan in so long. But I mean, I know this. I don't think I don't enjoy watching guys take bad threes. I don't like them to step back threes with 15 on the clock, and the pull up three that's slightly contested when a guy probably could have a layup, including yourself, maybe. And so, so this is what we have to do for my businesses, for the high school, college, or pro, is we're breaking down all of that all the time. And I just was talking to a player yesterday whose college team was one of the best teams in the country, had a gigantic win in a really important game, national TV, all of that. And I asked him, what do you think I was happiest with? His answer was wrong. He said shot selection, and he was wrong. But it was very good. His shot selection was very good. He shot great from three and from the field. Well, not so much from the field, but from three. But that wasn't what I liked best about it. But I liked that he was thinking about it. The idea is not just to jack it up. And so we have a process of the shot you took, is it something you've been practicing a lot? Have you made it a bunch? Did you get to shoot it with the same pace you normally practice with? Why do we contest shooters? To speed up their pace, right? You're not really always worried about getting the shot blocked, but you're mindful of it, which could impact the pace a little bit, which is what you're trying to do defensively. Are you in range? Are your feet where they normally are? Did the ball come in typically where you can shoot it good from? Some guys don't shoot it well if you throw it below their knees. Some guys are fine with that. Some guys don't shoot great, they jump in the air. All these factors are in. And if you can answer yes to everything, it's a good shot. Time and score is separate from that, right? There's a whole nother argument of up 6, 2 minutes to play, early in the clock. I like threes if the guy shooting it has made that a bunch, because I'd rather be up 9.
Of course.
If you miss up 6, you didn't lose the game,
right?
But if you make it, you probably won it. You probably went from 92% to 99%. Up 9 with less than a minute and a half to go, you're going to win the game. Almost always, 99% of the time. So I like looking at those things too. But I think we can have a better product. And in the article, I kind of talk about the coaches are a little afraid. I get it. I understand why. The players make more money than them in many cases. And And so we have players taking shots they shouldn't be taking, and the coaches aren't really getting on their ass about it. And that's too bad, because they should be able to not yell at them, but just, hey, like, there's a better shot than that.
Yeah.
And you don't want to fuck their freedom and their confidence. I get that. There's a fine line, but that's the line I have to walk all the time. And I know that line exists.
Yeah.
Because I know how to stay on it and not cross it.
It was interesting because watching that Cavs Thunder game last night, your article was playing in my mind because there's a portion of the game where the Cavs, the Thunder, defensively made it clear what they were doing. They were not going to allow the Cleveland bigs to get to the rim for dunks. So they were, as soon as they were coming out and pick and roll, two guys would trap the ball handler and force the big to make a play, and the help rotation would come from the side. But that meant leaving a corner 3-point shooter open. Well, you can't take away everything, as you often say, right? So it's like, I'm taking away the rim. We dare you to make threes. Well, Max Strus hits some threes. Karis LeVert hits some, but some of the guys also missed some too, right? So this is the gamble you play, but you would always say those are good shots, wide open corner 3-point shooters for guys who shoot 37+% from the corner,
or better than that from the corner.
Right.
A lot of times, a 37% shooter is 42%, 44 from the corner. Yeah. Yeah, this is the cat and mouse game we play. This is the chess game that exists all the time. And I think we can just, the idea of the article was, how can we get better basketball so that more fans would watch? We all want that. And so that's one way to do it, is just be a little bit more, we don't use the word settle. And it was funny, I was talking to my son yesterday, who's he's coaching his guys Alabama, but he's just a GA. He's not really, he's rebounding, passing. He gets no credit for the success of the team, and they're terrific. But he's helping other players in college just because he's friendly with them, and he has plenty of time in his hands. He's a single guy in Alabama, and he said to me, he used the word settle. I said, actually, Dad, I don't like to use the word settle, and I don't think he's ever heard me say that. So he's figured it out too. I don't like that term settle. All these fucking announcers say it all the time. It's not about settling; it's about choosing. They're choosing to shoot a three when there's plenty of time to get a better shot than the shot that they're choosing to take. And so I think we can create better basketball. And when you look at the teams like Cleveland and OKC, part of it, they want to shoot up, they want to get the game going fast because they have talent. They want as many possessions as possible. The better team wants as many possessions as possible typically, because the disparity between the talents can grow over 100 possessions instead of 5, right? Cleveland would not have the same record if it was a 10-possession game.
Correct.
It just wouldn't. Yeah. The more possession they have, the more they're going to win. And so the smarter we get our guys, I think the more pressure we put on defenses, which means they've got to be better, and the product gets better because of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Really great article, everyone. If you haven't read it, definitely go ahead and do that. David, before we go to break, we had the return of two players that I was like, are we ever going to see these guys play basketball again? We did. Zion Williamson and Kawhi Leonard are back. Zion had a play in that game where he came back against in a game the Pelicans played against the
windmill
the
dunk,
Timberwolves, where he stole the ball from Ant at half court, and I was like, that steal and that windmill dunk, all of that in that 2 seconds that it took, is the hope and the promise that everybody has of who this guy can actually be. Because I mean, you wrote it, David. We have data that supports it. When he plays, he puts up MVP-like numbers. Problem is, he doesn't play. Okay, and then Kawhi, we already know what he can do. Kawhi has come back. He's on a bit of a preseason schedule, and he actually was away from the team last night in their game because, as everybody knows, and for any of our LA listeners, our thoughts and our prayers are with you. We hope that you're able to find safety and shelter where you can. Kawhi went to be with his family as they evacuate because of the fires ripping through Southern California right now, which is a scary, scary proposition. Look, as far as Zion and Kawhi being back, I think the Pelicans are just so far gone in the standings. I don't know that it actually matters for them. For the Clippers, it might, because might be 6th right now. Either way, they're firmly in the top 10. But to me, the Pelicans, I don't know that it ultimately matters for them.
All right, so Kawhi looked rusty.
Yeah. No surprise.
He looked rusty to me. Yeah, no surprise, right? Shot was flat as always. That doesn't matter, but he just looked rusty. Missed some easy shots that's a product of rust more than anything. Zion did not look rusty. It's not the dunks that impressed me. I'm glad that he looked good physically. I
Mhm.
thought he made what makes him special, besides the other obvious stuff, is his touch around the rim, and that has not been there last year. It was there in this game, the game that I saw. That I forget this. They played
Timberwolves.
Minnesota.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, yeah, he made a bunch of tough touch shots.
Mhm.
That was encouraging. And he got a block
Yep.
and he got some steals. And
Mhm.
DeJounte Murray seemed to play well with him. That was good to see.
Yeah.
They need some good luck. Poor New Orleans. They've had some bad luck, man.
A lot of good luck. A
I'm
ton of
rooting
it.
for 'em.
Literally no injuries for the next 3 years. That's what they need.
Please. That'd be great. That'd be great.
All right, folks. We'll be back after a brief commercial break. All right, David, you teased earlier that we're doing all NBA. And the reason why I wanted to do all NBA is because it's that time where all-star stuff's coming out, first timers, all that. And look, all-star is what it is. As a kid, I enjoyed all-star much more than I do as a person in the media and as an adult. Um, it's great that fans have input in this part of the game, but we have too many legacy players that just make it just because they're your favorite and they've been around for a billion years. So I thought, let's do all NBA at this point of the season. 3 all NBA teams, which are positionless. So whatever, you could have 5 centers on your team if you want. Doesn't matter. The NBA has a rule that for the full season, when they make the awards, you have to play 65 games. So I put in a rule. By now, you got to play in 25 games. You haven't played in 25
That was my
games.
rule. I did 25 too.
Yeah, you got to have 25
I didn't do the
games.
math. I just did 25 sound like a good number.
Exactly. That sounds like a good number.
Most teams have played about 38.
Right, which means we are almost the halfway point, folks. 41.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're going to pick our all NBA teams. David, I will tell you right now, not one of the holy triumvirate of LeBron, KD, and Steph made my all NBA teams. Not one.
Really?
Mm-hmm. It was painful for me not to.
One of those guys made it for me. First team, actually.
I was just like,
Because the team's not very good.
Team's not very good. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. All right, you want to do third? First of all, I'll do the guys that I can't believe aren't on my list. I've got 4 guys, and Luka's not on the list because he didn't play enough.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. And I've got 4 guys that I can't believe aren't on the list. Cat. He's not on my list. Yeah. Cat's. I mean, he's on my list. I had to scratch him out.
Okay, fair enough.
2 times. I've scratched him out 2 times. Siakam's not on my list.
Yeah.
Probably a little more understandable, but he's had an amazing season.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pacers are a 6 seed as of today.
Yep.
And Tyrese isn't on my list.
Yep.
Someone should be on that team, but he's not making him. Franz Wagner, who's played enough games, isn't on my list. They're a 4 seed right now. And KD isn't on my list. Neither is he on yours. Yeah. So my third team.
Oh, we're gonna go 3-1. So just for your reference, I mentioned those 3 guys. Sabonis also didn't make my list. He's having a hell of a season. He's not on mine. And of course, I mentioned the Holy Triumvirate. They didn't make it. All right, you go.
So my third team is my backcourt. Let's go position by position. So I did it. By the way, I didn't do it the way you did it. Probably I didn't do it the way the league did it.
Yeah,
it was like the league. I did it. I want these guys. Listen, if we don't, let's not call it all NBA teams.
Right. Call it the 15 best players.
Right. But we're not doing that.
Right.
To me, it's a team. I'm going to build a team.
Correct.
Look, all this gray. I'm almost 60 in a month and a half. Okay. A month and a week. I'm fucking putting a team. Don't call it a team if you don't want it to be a team. So my backcourt is Jalen Brunson and Darius Garland.
Okay. I like that.
My third team.
I like that.
Okay. My 3 is Booker.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guard. Same thing. And then I've got AD and Mobley at the 4 and 5.
I like it.
You can interchangeable. That's my third team.
So Brunson, I had to scratch off mine as well. This is it's always the same thing. I'm like, I'm scratching off guys. Brunson. I was like,
listen, we could have 15 big guys.
I know
those aren't teams.
I know. So whatever. This is
You're
what I
allowed
did.
to do what the NBA does. It's
right.
Okay.
AD, Jalen Williams, Donovan Mitchell, Derek White, who's having a hell of a season, and Alperen Şengün.
I would not have had him in my Cat was above him in my rankings for center.
Oh, Cat's on mine.
Yeah. Second team. Okay. I've got Mitchell and White in my backcourt. That deservingly so. I've got Jalen Williams, J-Dub. That's what they call him in OKC as my 3. With Triple J and Wemby in my front court.
I love it, David. All right. So my second team. all big dudes and one ball handler. Well, I mean, more than one ball handler, but all big dudes. Evan Mobley, Triple J, Franz Wagner, Cat, and Darius Garland.
Yeah. It's a good group.
It's a
good group.
really,
So,
really
yeah.
good group.
So you've got Franz in there. Okay.
Yeah. I was like,
he just hasn't. He's been out for a bit. He'll be out for a bit more.
He played 25, and I was
Paolo's
like,
coming back.
Paolo, I think, might be back tonight, I think.
Yeah. Against,
Listen,
Minnesota.
They needed Franz to be good, by the way. And by the way, kudos to Orlando for finding a way to fight with no Franz, no Paolo.
Yeah,
like,
amazing.
When you guard, shock of all shocks, you can win games. Who knew?
Kenny's going to win Coach of the Year if it ended today, but Jamal's going to get votes.
Well, without question. All right, first team.
And then my first team, I've got, because I have to do positions, I've got Steph and SGA.
Yeah.
Steph's been incredible. The team hasn't been.
Right.
I get that. I've got Tatum at 3, Giannis at 4, Jokic at 5.
Yep.
That has been so hard.
SGA, Jokic, Tatum, Giannis, and Wemby for me on my first team.
Wemby first team. Yeah.
I was going to penalize him because the team's only 500, but I'm like, but they are 500 because of him.
Right. No, yeah. I looked at him for first team. I'm not, again, I'm doing the team thing.
Yeah.
I think the league is so wrong. I get their challenge of the positionless, but should just call them wings and bigs.
Yeah.
Wings or guards anyway.
Yeah.
So guard/wings bigs. Like, just do that.
Yeah.
But whatever. Yeah. So
we more or less have the same grouping of people, more or less.
Oh yeah. I've got if you throw in Luka.
Yeah, right.
There's gonna be 20 something guys up for 15 spots, I think, when it comes down to it.
As it is every year. And by the way, why does this stuff matter? Hello, when it's contract negotiation time, that's you making all NBA. That's Supermax money now, like
Halliburton got it. Didn't deserve all NBA last year, got it, and the Patriots have to pay him a fortune. He's playing great now. I'm glad.
He is. Oh, we're going to get to them in a minute.
He's playing really well. Yeah,
for sure. All right, you know what time it is? Favorite time of the show. It is top 5 teams in the NBA right now. Honorable mention, Knicks and Pacers for me. All right. Because the Pacers are 8 of their last 10, I want to say.
Maybe 7-3 or 8-2.
Okay.
They've won, basically when Nemhard's back, they're 15-7 maybe with Nemhard back.
So I got to give them props.
Have them like a 4 seed in the league.
Right. So that's why they're
some big wins.
That's why they're honorable mention for me along with the Knicks. All right, my 5 line, the Memphis Grizzlies.
I have Houston at 5.
Houston Rockets. Yeah, they sure do. We'll talk about that in a minute. Houston Rockets are on the 4 line for me.
I've got the Knicks at 4.
And I have the Celtics at 3, Thunder at 2, Cavs at 1.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So I thought, David, you mentioned, before I get to that, was another thing we predicted at the beginning of the season. Shout out to JB Bickerstaff and the Detroit Pistons. They won 14 games last year, already surpassed that win total this year. And man, they compete and look like they're actually having fun.
Listen, I considered Cade for my all-NBA team.
Yeah, listen, and I'd be like, there's a big reason why.
I did.
It's amazing how just a change of voice and culture and all of a sudden it's like, oh look,
we're for 2 places.
Yeah.
It's not like Cleveland added a bunch of new players.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it worked great for both places. So let's hope it continues. Yeah. I'm really and Detroit lost Ivy to a bad injury.
Yeah,
he was playing
tough.
really well.
He really was starting to come on.
He was an average player, but that's a big improvement from where he was the first year. The second year he got better too.
Among the worst players, the average is.
He was trending in a good direction. He's 22 years old. He was trending in a really good direction. Yeah, so I hope he recovers because they could use him.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I thought I'd look at like some just based on last night. We had that great game. What the NBA schedule has coming up. Some things I'm going to be watching before our next show. Just a reminder. Thursdays, that's when our shows are coming out now. We'll be doing Thursdays from now on going forward. The Pacers and Cavaliers, they have one of those little home and home series coming up. And I'm really
Tuesday.
I'm really going to be because as I mentioned, the Pacers are on a bit of a roll right now. We already talked about Cleveland at the beginning of the show. This will be a nice little measuring stick for Indiana. Is it all fool's gold we've been seeing, or no? Are we legitimately starting to play well again, and we're ready to like show what we can do against the upper echelon of the conference? I'm excited to see those 2 games.
Yeah, I didn't look up numbers going back to the last maybe 6 weeks or so, but with Nemhard back, they're like number 4 on offense, number 8 on defense, or maybe number 11, I forget. They've already beaten Boston twice. They beat OKC.
Yep.
And Tyrese is starting to look like an all NBA level player. Siakam is an all NBA, and he's having he's having about his career year at 30 years of age. His third year at Toronto was great too, and they won the championship. Miles Turner has kind of figured some things out.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Mathurin has figured some things
Yeah.
out. Neesmith isn't even back
I
yet, so
know.
they're missing their second best defender. Bryant, they've got to listen. When you are missing all these guys, they had no backup five. They had no Andrew Nemhard. They had no Aaron Neesmith. They're starting guys the guys that were starting for them are in the G League the other night.
Mm-hmm.
And now they got NBA players again. What a surprise they're playing better. And Tyrese is playing better. So they're not fun to play against. They've won. I just put it in there. How many minutes have they trailed the last 4 games?
They have trailed for a total of 6 minutes in the last 4 games.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like they beat nothing but terrible teams. Brooklyn isn't terrible.
Right.
And Chicago has not been terrible. And Miami with Jimmy Butler isn't terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Although that was the game where Jimmy got suspended afterwards because he got his ass kicked. and then he beat Phoenix. Yep. I mean, they're not just playing the worst teams every game. So to only trail 6 minutes is pretty impressive. And then, of course, I don't think the matchup with Cleveland's good for Indiana. That's the one team that really can pulverize them. Has before, where Miles Turner has to really step up against, because Pascal against Mobley will be fine. Turner's got to do it against Jarod Allen. Yeah.
Do you think they're going to primarily put Andrew on Darius?
Oh, they'll switch a bunch.
Okay.
Darius will, Nemhard will guard. Like last night, he had to guard Kobe White, but he started with Zach LaVine. He goes back. Basically, whoever he's not guarding, the other guy's going to score. If you're going to score against Indiana, it's probably not against Nemhard a whole lot. Tyrese is still a really terrible defender. He's trying more, and that's a big difference. And so that's what we'll see is Tyrese versus Garland, because I think Andrew will guard.
Right, because Andrew's strong, but like, man, that Donovan, when that shoulder gets into you, I'm like,
he'll make it tough on Donovan, though, is my opinion. Whoever Tyrese is guarding will have more of a field day, probably. And then we'll see how Mathurin does. If Indiana... Are both games in one location?
I think it's like a home and home series, I believe. Yeah.
I mean, to me, if you're Cleveland, you want to win both games. Indiana wins one of 2 after the roll they're on. They're coming.
A split's good for them.
I would not be surprised if they're competing with Orlando for the 4 seed. Orlando's got a good lead on them.
They do.
They're a 6 seed now, but they're coming. And obviously, barring injuries, I could see them fighting Orlando for that 4 seed. I think Orlando's got an advantage, but Franz is out. We'll see when Paolo comes back how long he takes to get going. And they've been doing so well without him. Now they got to adjust to it. It's not the easiest adjustment when guys are like suddenly getting a lot less shots.
Yep. And that's a big thing that people often think about, right? It's like, oh, we'll be so great when our guy gets back. It's like, yeah, but the team's been playing well without you. Now we have to recalibrate what we've been doing so well, right? And and you're not going to be awesome from the jump either. I mean, most people aren't, right? When they've been out for a while. The other one I'm looking at is the Grizzlies play the Rockets twice over the next 4 days with Minnesota sandwiched in the middle, mainly because Houston is such a tough, physically defensive team. So I really want to see how Memphis reacts and handle that. They've been without John Morant for a while, which has been great minutes for Scottie Pippen Jr., which are going to be valuable for him. Reference points, David always mentions. Look, Memphis is playing well. I think Jaren is we had him on our All-NBA, so he's an easy All-Star.
But, for sure.
That's going to have to be a coach's pick because he won't get voted in by the fans.
No.
But
it's a battle for the 2 seed.
It really is. And
it matters.
How about Houston, man? What if they get the 2 seed? What an amazing jump for them. And look, we give Ime all the props for instilling a defensive tough. I mean, that's how he was as a player. We saw that's how he was in Boston. Like, if you're not guarding, you're not playing. Like, it's pretty much that simple. Like, and I really like what Houston's doing. And of course, and they have the guys to do it. I mean, when Thompson's on the floor and you got Jabari Smith Jr. out, which, bad for him, but good for whoever gets those minutes, right? So it's always a blessing and a curse. It's like, it's hurting his development, but who takes advantage when those minutes are given to them?
I looked at Fred VanVleet for All-NBA.
He's been playing awesome this
season. His scoring numbers aren't great. His shooting numbers aren't great. His impact on winning is great. And that matters.
Yeah.
It's just not All-NBA. There's enough good players to not put him in there.
Yeah. No, listen, we have a plethora of talent all over this league. There's so many good players. I know I love them too. You all love them. Like, it ain't just about those dudes, right? Like, we got so many good guys everywhere. Just watch. You'll see them. Just turn it on the TV. They're everywhere.
It's unbelievable.
All right, guys, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the basketball, and we will see you next week.